series for the Giants. They're 17 and a half games behind the Dodgers, but still can make the playoffs. The Giants are battling for a wild card spot. First pitch tonight is 7:10. The Rams traded running back Cam Akers to the Minnesota Vikings. In return, the Rams get a 6th-round pick from the Vikings in 2026. The Rams have been trying to unload Akers for more than a year. If you need some football tonight, the NFL has a Thursday night game for you. The New York Giants at San Francisco. The 49ers are one of 8 undefeated teams in the NFL heading into Week 3. 5:15 p.m. kickoff. You can catch the game live on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
On Monday, October 9th, don't miss the KBLA Talk 1580 exclusive. The tape. 1 year later.
Y'all were coming for us.
Yeah, but Tavis, that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens. On Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580, The Tape, 1 year later. We're broadcast live in afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later, are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
Well, you can tell everybody, yeah, you can tell everybody, go ahead and tell everybody, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man, yes I am, yes I am, yes I am, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. I believe every lie that I ever told, paid for every heart that I ever stole. I played my cards and I didn't fold, well it ain't that hard when you got sold. Somewhere I heard that life is a test. I've been through the worst, but I still give my best. God made my mold different from the rest. Then he broke that mold, so I know I'm blessed. Stand up now and face the sun. Won't hide my tail or turn and
KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA. I'm Dominique DePrima, and I'm so excited to welcome into the space an author, a columnist, a sister, eldest of 8 children. She's published children's novels. She started being a columnist at the Times at the age of 18. She's been named Columnist of the Year 6 different times. She is the author of several books, and her latest, Thus the Aloe Black, is called What About Men? Caitlin Moran, welcome.
Hello, my darling. Welcome from London. Hello.
Well, it's great to talk with you. I feel like a real slacker because once, I found out you were coming on this show, I started reading and feel like I've missed out on so much of your work just by not paying enough attention. So I'm really glad to meet you.
Oh, darling, don't worry. We're all busy people. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, we're all busy people. And it's funny because, on this show, when we talk about feminism or womanism, women's rights, many times it's framed in an adversarial way because as Black women, we have, we have multiple levels that we're dealing with at the same time when we talk about feminism or womanism. And I think one of the things that I've really been enjoying reading you is just the dimensions that you have in embracing like what it means to be a feminist in real life.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Well, the thing I like to do, I mean, I like to entertain. Hopefully the books are funny.
Yeah, they are.
Hopefully the books are sometimes, quite dirty. I love a shameful topic. I love a taboo topic and try and take away the shame, because shame doesn't do any of us any good. But the thing that I love most is to be useful. And my job, there isn't really such a thing as being a writer. You're a thinker, and everybody else has normal jobs and they're too busy. But I get to sit here and think all day and see problems with people and just go, could I come up with something useful here? So I'm very pleased to hear that it sounds like that's been working.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think to your point, one of the points I've heard you make is that we can get into this sort of loop where we're only talking to the small circle of academics that, that would read the books. And by incorporating the humor in what I call real life, which is, applying these things in actual situations the way people live, I find it very useful, actually.
Oh, thank you. Well, look, I mean, no one loves academic feminists more than me. They go out there, they do the research, they write the reports, they're coming up with new phrases and ways to understand things. Like, they are brilliant. They are the shoulders that we all stand on. But the truth is, most people will not read, a quite dry academic book about feminism. People just don't have the time. They want some. And so I see my job is to try and take a lot of that kind of, that brilliantly researched academic feminism and put it in a book that my sister will read. But my sister knows nothing about academia or news. She was the girl who rang me in 2015, and after we'd been chatting for a while, she went, "Oh yeah, what happened to that Barry Obama?" And I went, "You mean Barack Obama, twice elected as the first African-American president of the United States of America?" And she was like, "Yeah, Barry Obama." So that you've got to remember there are people out there who just don't know anything about politics, anything about, academia, and they just want to read a fun book. And so that's, I'm there for those guys.
A fun book, and then, you might learn something along the way, which is always a plus, right?
Right. Well, I'm from the Mary Poppins school. It's the spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down. My kind of, I deal with all the big subjects over my books. We've talked about, sexual assault, rape, coercive control, masturbation, abortion, miscarriage, menopause, eating disorders, mental illness, like all the big things that can happen to people, and particularly women. But at the same time, I want to make them feel warm and joyful and positive at the end of it. I feel it's really important for us to be able to tell our stories, to have no shame in talking about something that happened to us, and to also find a language in which we're not always the victims, that we live through these things and we still look for joy. And also, particularly for women, I think we often have quite a dark humor when we've lived through some traumatic things, when it's just women alone. The kind of jokes that we'll make as survivors are often quite dark. No one will, have a darker sort of sense of humor or laugh more at terrible things than women who've been through a lot. You put a lot of women who've been through a lot in their lives together, and, those mothers, those aunties, those sisters are all sitting around, they will be crying, laughing by the end of it, because, we know that it is laughter and sharing our experiences that bring us closer together and make us feel not alone. It's very easy to feel alone when you've gone through something difficult. And that's what those conversations are for, to make us all be together.
That explains a lot. Now I see why I have this gallows humor. But
Right?
but I think, we are in weird times. You said you live in your bio, it says you live on Twitter, which is hilarious. But, when it comes to, especially when it comes to gender, right? We're processing so much. We're understanding, or at least debating the idea of gender being on a spectrum, sexuality being on a spectrum, rather than a polarity or a binary kind of model, and the all of the resultant online conversations, which can be quite toxic and polarizing between men and women and such. I noticed on your Twitter a lot of conversation, for example, about the story, the Russell Brand story, and it's bringing up the same conversations and talking points that we've had, at least on my radio shows, talking about Bill Cosby and R. Kelly and, Harvey Weinstein. And they are serious news stories that get right to the heart of how we deal with gender.
Yes. And they also reveal, it's been interesting seeing the response to the Russell Brand story online. I noticed that women generally will tend to believe these allegations because we live in a world where 1 in 4 of us have been sexually assaulted or raped. So it's either happened to us or we know someone it's happened to. So we find it very easy when a woman says, this thing happened to me, to go, yeah, I know this happens a lot. I believe this can happen. But it's only, this is why I find, even though, social media, can be a very toxic place, I still find it an interesting place to be because it is the first time in history that everybody has been able to go to a place and talk and have a platform. Previously, you had to be a newspaper columnist, you had to be a broadcaster for people, millions of people, to read or hear what you say. But, on social media now, anybody can go out there and talk, and some of them are bad and angry, and some of them are hopeful, and some of them are useful. But it was really interesting seeing the gender divide about Russell Brand on social media. Women believed it, and the men kept saying things like, I don't believe it. Like, kind of, this is women whispering campaigns again. This is lies. I won't believe it until I see the evidence with my own eyes. And I started to realize that men and women do live in a different world to each other. Still it tends to be if women have had something bad happen to them sexually, we tell each other, we tell other women. We tend not to tell the men in our lives. I know sort of when the Me Too movement kicked off, suddenly women started sharing their stories on social media. And men that they knew, men that I knew, would suddenly be going, oh my God, I didn't realize, how scared you are that, that this happens in your workplace, that when you all go out for a night out together, women have to plan how they will go home. We all drop each other off in taxi cabs. We all call each other and go, did you get home? We walk down the street with our keys between our fingers. And men were going, we didn't know this. We didn't know how scared you were. We didn't know how prevalent this was. And I was shocked that they were surprised. And then I thought, well, up until now, I think women without even thinking about it have gone, this is what women talk about when we go into the women's toilets. We're telling each other who to stay away from. We're giving each other tips. We're making sure that we know how we're going to get home together. We're telling each other our stories. We haven't actually included men in those conversations. And why is that? And I think sometimes we think, I don't know, it would upset the men. They wouldn't believe us. There's a whole host of reasons why, until very recently, women talking about the reality of like dark sexual things that have happened in their lives, we have tended not to include men in that conversation. We're only just starting to have that now. So Russell Brand is replaying the same thing that happened with Cosby, the same thing that happened with Weinstein, where gradually men are starting to see how frequently these stories are in the news. And each time women share their stories, and gradually I think men are starting to realize, all right, okay, this is, when I read that statistic, 1 in 4, that means 1 in 4 of the women that I know have had this happen to me. I can't be that guy who goes, I don't believe this. I can't be that guy who goes, women lie, or this is a whispering campaign, because I have just realized that when a woman I know has probably gone through this. Yeah. And I am now saying, I don't believe her. I think she is lying. And that's, this is slow progress. But each time we have one of these celebrity sort of sexual assault or rape cases, I just see a couple more guys finally go, oh, I get it. Oh, okay, this keeps happening, doesn't it? It's not like there's going to be one of these cases and then it's all going to go away. We are slowly auditing years and years of these men being able to cover these things up.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, as someone who's experienced a sexual assault myself, one of the reasons you don't want to talk to men is because you don't want to be grilled. You don't want to be questioned. I don't want to be grilled. I don't want to be questioned. I don't want to have to defend myself and say, and be mad at you because you don't believe me. And be mad at you because you have some kind of standard about how fast I'm supposed to say something, or if I'm a gold digger, or what really happened is actually qualifying as an assault or a rape. We're talking with Caitlin Moran. She's the author of What About Men. She's a noted columnist, humorist, feminist, and so why take on the topic of rebooting masculinity? We'll look at that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're now in Big Tobacco's fantasy land. Welcome. It's a healthier world where they want you to believe that vaping makes quitting cigarettes a breeze. Never mind the evidence that vaping leads to using both. And if you're younger, even better. Teens who vape are 3 times likelier to use cigarettes. In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, the deadliest industry is your friend.
Big Tobacco's idea of smoke-free is a dangerous fantasy for us all. See reality at undo.org.
We said 1,500 hours.
Dax's hangar flies high thanks to his military precision.
Rob, you copy?
He wants to land some aircraft mechanics, preferably with a military background.
Okay, I wasn't aware of a new timeline. Cancel. Stand by for new assignments.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our hiring platform instantly connects you with quality candidates, and you can schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from the Indeed dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This season, your coffee orders are getting warmer, and your outfits are getting cozier. The world keeps changing, and so does COVID-19. That's why this season's COVID-19 shots have been updated. They're one of the best ways to help protect yourself against COVID-19. You can get a COVID-19 shot at the same visit as a flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Talk to your healthcare provider to learn more and schedule at vaccines.gov. And don't forget to get extra cinnamon spice. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday. But right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Kayla Moran is with me, and some of her books include How to Be a Woman, How to Build a Girl, More Than a Woman, and now, What About Men? What pivoted you here? I mean, I guess most folks would say, you know, who is the audience? Like, do men want to hear what women have to say about What About the Men? Do we, as women, want to hear this research that you've done, or this analysis that you've done about the men? Where did this pivot come from?
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think we still tend to think of things in terms of like gender wars, the battle of the sexes, Mars versus Venus. But when I wrote my first book, How to Be a Woman, when I told my publishers the title, it's going to be called How to Be a Woman, they were like, we better hope a lot of women buy it, because no man is going to buy a book called How to Be a Woman. And then about 3 weeks into it, we found out that about a third of the people who were buying that book were men.
Really?
Because in it, I'm talking about, you know, all these things that sort of like we weren't really talking about back then, sort of female sexuality and, you know, what women really mean when they say, I've got nothing to wear tonight, like all these sort of things. And men were buying it almost like a manual for like understanding women. They were like,
how to.
Now I understand. Yeah, now I understand what my girlfriend, my wife, my sister means, my daughter means when they say these things, or why they're scared of these things, you know, why these are problems in women's lives. And we forget that, you know, men and women, we know each other. We're constantly with each other. Like, kind of, you know, we're marrying each other. We're giving birth to each other. Like, this whole idea of there being a war between us, in real life, there isn't. Like, of course there isn't. You know, we're hanging out with each other every day. And so, you know, if the women are in trouble, the men actually do want to know what's going on. And similarly now with this book, I see that men, to me, appear to be in trouble. And so I was like, I think the people who will read this book, sure, some men are going to read it, but I think a lot of women are going to want to read this and go, oh, now I understand why my husband says this. Like, for instance, the difference between men and women in their friendships. 1 in 5 men of the age of 50 says that they don't have a close friend. Men seem to find it very difficult to schedule friendships and meeting up and those kind of coffees and gossips and kind of, you know, girls' nights out that women find really easy, that we do automatically. And there's lots of research that says, once a couple have been together, gradually, because men don't make time to see their male friends, gradually his social circle becomes his wife. She's the one inviting her friends over for dinner. He sits there, he gets along with them, but he's not going to make the phone call to go and see his friends, his male friends, and like go and do something together, because men just aren't used to scheduling friendships in the way women are. Women have realized that friendship is a verb. It's a doing word. We put it in our schedule. Men do not. So since I've written the book, we did a big live tour in the UK, went to #1 in the charts, and I've had a lot of men coming up to me going, "Oh my gosh, I read that chapter about male friendships. It made me realize I haven't seen my best friend for 6 months. I sort of rang him up and suggested we hang out, and I felt like I was almost asking him out on a date. I realized it had been so long since I said, let's go and talk, that it felt really weird, but I'm really glad I've done it. It's been interesting, kind of like, and I think the statistics are as well that 80% of books are bought by women. So I suspect, and so far that's sort of been borne out, people who are buying this book are either women who are worried about their husbands, and half the chapters are about kind of, older men and husbands, or mothers who are worried about their teenage sons who are being exposed to sort of violent online pornography, sort of a radical right-wing misogyny from Andrew Tate and sort of incels and the manosphere. And sort of through the book, we've sort of each chapter, it takes the course of a man's life, basically from birth to death, and we look at all the problems that men have, borne out by the statistics of problems that men uniquely experience in their lives rather than women. When you say men are in trouble, what do you mean by that? So there's a whole bunch of stats at the beginning of the book. So starting at school, boys are more likely to fall behind academically. They're more likely to be put on medication for disruptive behavior. They're less likely to go on to further education. They're more likely to become addicted to drugs, alcohol, or pornography. They make up the majority of the prison population. They make up the majority of the homeless population. And in the UK, the leading cause of death for men under the age of 50 is taking their own life. It's suicide. So those are very gendered problems. Those are problems that, because of the way we raise our boys and treat our men, that men are suffering from disproportionately. And the thing that women have had is, when we've seen problems that women have that affect us disproportionately, we have the feminist movement. We're very good at saying this is a problem, finding other women who have the same problem, naming it, giving it a hashtag, campaigning about it, changing legislation, forming charities, forming outreach groups, and talking about our problems. There isn't that kind of culture for men. There isn't that kind of network that we have for women. Women have invented this brilliant thing called feminism. So with my teenage daughters, when I failed as a mother, I knew they could go online and immediately, Google any problem they had as a woman or a girl. And there's a blog out there by a woman, there's a TikTok out there by a woman, there's a book, there's a movie, there's a song by Beyonce. Someone somewhere,
a song and a
bright
movie.
Woman will have identified it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Exactly.
You're right. I mean, but here's the thing: it's kind of like man is the default. I mean, yeah, we have Black History Month because white history is the default. So it's kind of like, I mean, do men need, manism groups because aren't they the dominant group in society?
Well, the thing is, if you look at, I've read a lot of those very dry books about academic books about feminism and stuff. And the thing about patriarchy is, we as women know what patriarchy is, and we know how male and female relationships are affected by it. But men don't really talk about how patriarchy affects them. Like, patriarchy is a small amount of dominant men who are setting the tone. Patriarchy is when a 6-year-old boy falls over and cries, we go, don't be a girl, be a man, don't cry. That is incorrect. And that's the kind of behavior you see all the way through the lives of boys and men. Patriarchy is saying this is male behavior, and a small amount of dominant men are telling all the other men how to behave. And these are the men that men are scared of. These are the guys who are going to, say awful things about women, and the men are too scared to say, don't say that about women. That is disrespectful. That is unpleasant. These are the men who will start fights in bars, and the other guys will be too scared to wade in because these are the dominant guys. So we never really talk about how patriarchy, we know how patriarchy screws over women, but we don't really talk about it in relationship to men, because I think men are very reluctant to go, yeah, this hurts me too. This affects me, or they're not aware of it, because again, I had this massive revelation, and when I was writing this book, in every bookshop you go into in the world, there's a women's section. There's a section of self-help books and feminism and intersectionality, every stage of your life, menopause, being a mother, giving birth, mental illness. Women write books about women in every stage of our life. It is a whole genre of book. There isn't a men's section. So all the problems that men have, they just don't have that culture of talking about these things, sharing their problems with each other, admitting their vulnerabilities and anxieties and weaknesses. And for a very long time, when I kept having men coming up to me going, yeah, you're always talking about women's problems. Feminists are always talking about women's problems, but what about men's problems? What about us? We suffer, we're anxious, what about us? And I admit for the first 5 years, I, like many women, was like, I don't care. Compared to women, you're fine. I am team tits. I'm a feminist. It's all about the women and the girls for me. And also, it would be the ultimate irony of feminism, would it not, if women had to solve all the problems of women and girls, and then we had to go and solve the men's problems. So I was like, look, if you've got problems, guys, you've got to sort these out. But I kept having men coming to me going, no one is talking about us. There isn't a culture of talking about us. And then I started realizing that the impact on women and girls, basically as a woman, we know that half of our problems are men. Screwed up men, angry men who are scaring us, men who are assaulting us, men who are harassing us, men who disrespect us at work, men who won't promote us, men who don't pay us equally. And so you can't fix the girls until you fix the boys. Like, you cannot make women's lives the brilliant feminist utopia we want it to be until we don't have any more screwed up dark men who hate us or disadvantage us or scare us. So if men are being left alone to deal with their problems and they're not coping with them very well, which those statistics that I told you at the beginning about prison, homelessness, suicide, mental health all prove they're not, then we need to help the men. That's going to benefit us as much as it's going to benefit the men. So my feminism is very much about, okay, we help the women and girls, but in order to help the women and girls, I think we need to start talking about the boys now, because this younger generation of boys, the kind of stuff that they're able to access online, the pornography that they're watching, the messaging they're getting from these very popular, very wealthy online misogynists who are basically trying to turn the clock back 50 or 100 years and go, men should be dominant again. Men should have the power. Women should be in the kitchen. Women should not be at work. Those boys, there is not a liberal, progressive movement talking to them. When someone says we need to talk about boys now, the only people who are stepping into that arena at the moment are people who have a very damaging, regressive, conservative message. So I was like, okay, we need to put something warmer and positive and more joyful and progressive out there and give our teenage boys the same kind of advice and help and joy and uplift that we have been so good at giving our teenage girls, particularly during this last wave of feminism. Like, let's get some true equality out there.
Yeah, I mean, when you delve into the manosphere and and I actually am the mom of an 18-year-old boy. The things I hear, the things I see, the things that are on YouTube and everywhere else, it's a lot. I think it's not okay for us to ignore it. But I love your point, and we're going into news, traffic, and sports here, but I want to address this on the other side. You referenced it, the patriarchy limiting men. And when you talk about rebooting masculinity, we're talking about the ways that traditional male roles in society are actually limiting the options and the opportunity for boys and men. We'll look at that when we come forward with Caitlin Moran on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Russia launched its biggest missile attack in weeks across Ukraine today. Missiles pounded energy facilities and knocked out power in 5 regions in the west, center, and east of the country. Officials said the attacks appear to be the opening salvo in a new air campaign against Ukraine's power grid. At least 18 people were reported wounded, including a 9-year-old girl. There are close to 700 attempts to ban library books during the first 8 months of this year. The American Library Association said this week that those attempts targeted more than 1,900 titles. That's 20% more than the first 8 months of 2022. The association said most of the titles that were targeted this year were written by or about people of color or members of the LGBTQ community. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Start saving on the road with Valero's 100 Days of Summer. Get fuel-saving snacks, swag, and more every day all summer long. Only with Valero Pay Plus. Download the app and start saving right now. Additional terms and conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Dodgers' 5-game winning streak came to an end last night. Detroit beat the Dodgers by 2. The Giants are in town. They begin a 4-game series with the Dodgers tonight. Important series for the Giants. They're 17.5 games behind the Dodgers, but still can make the playoffs. The Giants are battling for a wild card spot. First pitch tonight is 7:10. The Rams traded running back Cam Akers to the Minnesota Vikings. In return, the Rams get a 6th-round pick from the Vikings in 2026. The Rams have been trying to unload Akers for more than a year. If you need some football tonight, the NFL has a Thursday night game for you. The New York Giants at San Francisco. The 49ers are one of 8 undefeated teams in the NFL heading into Week 3. 5:15 p.m. kickoff. You can catch the game live on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Applications are now being accepted for the City of Los Angeles Emergency Renters Assistance Program. The program provides up to 6 months of rental arrears to low-income residential renters who are at risk of homelessness due to unpaid rent as a result of COVID-19 or other financial hardship. Applications will not be accepted after 6 p.m. on October 2nd, 2023. Go online 24/7 at housing.lacity.org or call 888-379-3150 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and see if you qualify. Apply today.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
Meet Bruce.
Hey there.
He's a busy soccer dad who's trying hard to learn the game.
Go for the end zone.
Whoops. Luckily, other things come easy, like banking with Chase. On a tip from his banker, he set up autosave in the Chase mobile app. So what are you saving for, Bruce?
Father-daughter soccer camp.
Smart bankers, convenient tools. One bank with the power of both. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Autosave requires a Chase checking and savings account. Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
When my family does Walt Disney World Resort, we do it big.
Bippity-boppity big, like Cinderella Castle.
Uh-huh, big, like those juicy turkey legs from Gaston's Tavern.
It doesn't get any bigger than the Tam Tam Drummers. Get it, Grandma.
Yeah, and big like Goofy's kicks. Yup.
It's your world, so do it big at Walt Disney World Resort.
Now. We tend not to think about now. We dream about tomorrow, relive yesterday. But right now in front of us is victory over cancer. Right now, cancer research funded by the V Foundation is leading to better treatments and saving lives. Victory over cancer is there for the taking by you, because today's cancer research is tomorrow's victory. Learn more at v.org.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You do, and I'm so happy to have today for our daily deep dive columnist, author Caitlin Moran. What About Men is her new book, and we're talking about this idea of rebooting masculinity and how traditional male roles have also limited men, not just women.
Oh, God, well, absolutely, unobservably. I mean, again, when you look at the mental health statistics, you know, and the incidence of men taking their lives, like kind of like this inability to be able to say, I am scared, I am vulnerable, I am worried about this. Like, you know, the horrible truth of it is that there is an observable amount of men who would rather kill themselves, you know, because they do, than say, I'm struggling, I'm worried, this makes me feel insecure, I don't know what I'm doing in my life. And that's a massive failing. How are we teaching our boys from such a young age that they will reach a certain point in their lives where they would literally rather prefer to end their lives and admit that they're worried about something or they're not coping with something. So the offer is huge. If masculinity can change, and this doesn't mean that masculinity itself is wrong. Like, one of the misconceptions is that kind of when feminists are talking about, or women are talking about changing the idea of masculinity, that we're saying you would all have to shave your beards off and become vegetarian and carry a small chihuahua around and live in a city and use these colognes and kind of like, you can be some big beardy guy living in in the forest and, shooting pigs with your guns, whatever it is you want to do. That extreme kind of masculinity, so long as you're not hurting anybody, so long as you're not making anybody unhappy, is just as acceptable as the extreme femininity of walking around dressed in pink with, a tiny dog in your handbag, and sort of like, being covered in makeup and, wearing your jewels or whatever. Like, no version of masculinity or femininity, so long as you're not hurting anyone around you or making you unhappy, is bad. But it's just looking at what being a man, being a classic man, a powerful alpha man is supposed to consist of, and going, does that work in the real world? Does that work in the modern world? So, for instance, now the majority of families have two working parents. Like, working women, that's just not going to go away. The way the economies work, in most countries in the world now, is that women have to work. But then when you look at these online misogynist right-wing advisors to young men, they're saying, no, we need to turn the clock back. Your partner, your women, they should not be at work. The man earns the money. We need to go back to that thing where the man has the money, the man has the control, and the woman is the homemaker. This is, not only is this terrible advice, it's unworkable advice. Like, every economy in the world would collapse if women had to go back and stay in the house. If the option of work, if they want to work, was taken away from them. So it could never work. But you've got a whole generation of boys who are going on these websites, they're watching these people on TikTok and on YouTube, and they're being sold this idea that if we turn the clock back, then all the problems they feel in the 21st century as 15, 16, 17-year-old boys, the insecurity they feel, the worry they feel, the fact they're not succeeding at school, the fact they find it difficult to talk to women, would all be cured if we went back to 1952 or 1852. And it's palpably, clearly not correct. Like, kind of, if you're a teenage boy, your main problems are probably that you're worried about your skin, you still haven't found some clothes that make you look good, you'd really like to talk to a girl, and you really hope at some point you'll get a job that you halfway enjoy. People like Andrew Tate are not offering any solutions to those problems. They're just selling this mad, damaging fantasy to young men, which wastes most of their teenage years. Most boys, we look at the statistics, grow out of these kind of more radical sort of online misogynist influences by the time they sort of hit their 20s. But what a waste of your teenage years, where you could just be out with your friends playing sport and having fun, and instead you're sitting in your bedroom using your mum's Wi-Fi and your mum's computer to watch these men who are giving you terrible advice.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just, I mean, I do think it's spread to older people too, just based on some of the conversations or battles I've had online. One of the talking points is that there's this push towards the feminization of men. And so some people may hear rebooting masculinity and think that's what you mean. I was glad you said that about, if you want to have your beard and live in the forest, that's not what we're talking about.
Oh, no. Well, it's also as well, it's been interesting when I was doing the live tour in the UK, kind of like we sort of like one of the chapters. So I talk about all the problems of men that are all based on statistical observable problems that men have. And at the end of it, and really unexpectedly when I was writing this book, the word heartbreaking was the word that I used the most often, because I kept finding these sadnesses, these unaddressed sadnesses in men's life, this sort of loneliness, this fear, health problems, feeling that, that there is no future for them. And I wanted to end the book with an uplifting chapter, something, just talk about what's good about men and boys, what's good about masculinity, because I observe usually when any kind of social movement starts, the most successful ones start with joy. They start with positivity. What is great about my community? What is great about us? What do we need to celebrate about us? What has not been represented about us? That's what I observe in the feminist movement, in the LGBTQ community, in the Black community. That's where you start your movements. And so I wanted to start with something positive about men. So I went on Twitter and I was like, what are the positive aspects of masculinity? And people were kind of like sort of saying things like, loyalty, strength, the desire to protect the people they love. And I was going, yeah, those are all masculine traits, but also I observe all of those in women as well. Like, women want to protect the people they love. Women are loyal. Women have joy. Just this idea that we have these gendered things. These are the things for men and these are the things that are for women. That's what often causes us trouble as both women and men. The difference is that women over the last 100 years, if you look at our grandmothers and great-grandmothers, we could not vote. We had to wear skirts. We weren't allowed to open bank accounts. Marital rape was legal. We couldn't open businesses. We had no control over our lives whatsoever. We could not vote. You fast forward 5 generations and look at our lives now. Women are wearing trousers. We own businesses. We're world leaders. We're in space. We've taken these things that were traditionally seen as men's things and the things that only men can do, and we have co-opted them into our lives, and we have benefited. But in that same time, men have not taken any of the things that are traditionally seen as female, having these close friendship groups, being able to confess your anxieties, being able to reach out and talk about, being able to talk about your problems, being the most present parent, being the person that can define what love is, being a homemaker. These things are all things that, because they're female, are seen as lesser, and so men have not wanted to come and take them, even though we can see that it is of a disadvantage to them now in the modern world, that these are the things, when we look at the stats on loneliness, on mental health, on fathers, feeling that, I did so many interviews with fathers where they were sort of saying, I know I'm the least important parent, I'm the least present parent in my child's life. And then and the very observable trend as well, that it's often when a first marriage is broken down and a man has gone on to have a second family, he will say, oh, this time around, I'm there for the babies. This time around, I'm changing the diapers. This time around, I'm playing with them. I couldn't do it with my first family because my career was so big and I was so worried about earning my money that I was not there. I missed them. And that gives me pain. And that's a societal problem, that we don't have paternity leave, that men are not able to be as present as they would want to in their children's lives. And then the pressure that it puts on women as well. We're the ones that have to bear the burden of childcare. When women, I think most people in two-parent families would prefer it that there was an equal balance, that women get to go out and work and have their money and feel their independence, but we also get to be present as a parent. And the same for men, rather than what often tends to be still now that big gender divide. Men are the ones who have the bigger paying jobs, so they stay full-time. Women go full-time because they have lesser paying jobs. And that terrible imbalance where by the time a child is 5, the mother is the one that is the key person in its life, the one that it will call for when it's sad. And that is heartbreaking to the father and an unfair burden on the mother. So it's all about, true equality, like we should be able to share our children. We should be able to share our money. We should be able to share our emotions. And when we have these are the things of men and these are the things of women, that's often where you see misery in both men and women.
People might assume that you're not married, but you are married. And you said your husband is gender bilingual.
Oh, did I say that? God, I write so much. He was kind of the guy that taught me. So he's Greek. His parents are sort of Greek immigrants from Greece. He's a working class boy, as I am. And he just had a very sort of instinctive sort of sense of that women should be equal. I think because he'd observed his own parents' marriage and seen how unequal that was. And he had one of those classic alpha fathers, patriarchal fathers. And he can remember at the age of 10 going, when I get married, I'm going to observe everything my father does and do the exact opposite. And I think that will make sure that I have a happy marriage. So I have benefited from his father being such a terrible husband because, he's a good husband.
What a blessing. What About Men is her book. Caitlin Moran is my guest. When we come forward, this concept, I'm going to call it a concept of the alpha man, seems to be quite a mind virus. I sound like Elon Musk. I don't mean to, but it's KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time, and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, the chat room on YouTube is having a field day, Caitlin Moran. As they say, Terry Tari says it starts with respect. Men and women need to respect each other. I mean, that seems like sort of basic advice for all human beings. But we do have these kind of preordained roles. And I think this idea of the alpha man, which may or may not even be a scientific concept, has led to all kinds of misunderstandings and posturings.
Oh, hugely. Well, I mean, when you look at the richest people in the world, the majority of them are straight white men. And you look at, someone like Elon Musk, on the one hand, I'm not one of those people, I know there's a lot of people who are like everything he does is bad. Like, there are aspects of him that we see in men all the way through history that are positive and good. Like, he's clearly incredibly dedicated to what he does. He's clearly very clever. He's inventing all these technologies. He has this vision of the future. But inbuilt with that are a load of weaknesses. Like, he never seems to be able to say that he's got something wrong or he's failed. So it's a really important part of being a human being. Like, when that rocket exploded, instead of saying, it exploded, that went wrong, he went, it had a rapid, unscheduled assembly. Like, kind of, I think it's particularly for boys, and again, it seems a really alpha thing that men should never be able to admit that they've lost, that, that they've made a mistake. All human beings will lose. All human beings will make a mistake. But we seem to be, still telling our boys that they must never admit they've made a mistake. They must never admit that they've lost, that they've never learned. And to me, a real alpha man is the kind of man that can go, yeah, I made a mistake. I lost there. It hurt me. I feel embarrassed. I'm going to go away and think about what I've done, and then I'll come back stronger. That's a really key part of bringing up a boy in order to be a healthy man, because we will lose all the way through our lives. We will hurt people by accident all the way through our lives. And if we can't turn around, there's nothing more. I've really enjoyed teaching my children just how amazing it is to be able to say a heartfelt apology, to look someone in the eye, repeat back to them what you did to them, and say, I know how much that hurt you. I'm really sorry. That's such a key thing. And I think that's true male power, is being able to admit your mistakes and admit when you've lost. It's a relief to you. If you're one of those men that has to go all the way through your life pretending nothing bad has ever happened, and you've never made a mistake, that pressure that builds up inside you, you're not living in reality. And the people around you that you damage, you live in a different reality to everybody else, because the people around you know that you made a mistake. The people around you know that you screwed up. But if you are never acknowledging it, you're basically in your existence gaslighting everyone around you, is going, I remember him screwing up. That rocket exploded. I saw it.
Right. And where does, the non-binary and the sort of gender spectrum fit into this, this binary conversation about what's for men and what's for women and rebooting masculinity?
Well, that's why I find it interesting that that's sort of like, the next generation down, kind of Gen Z, Gen A, that they are looking at, they're really properly questioning what gender is. Someone's saying, I could be one gender on one day, one gender on another. I don't know. I'm from an older generation. I'm certainly not going to say, well, this is wrong, or they're screwing up, or this is crazy, because it's not like my generation got gender good. It's not like we perfectly defined and everybody's really happy with our gender roles. So I'm very happy to sit back and watch the younger people play with all this stuff and just go, yeah, let's see if there's a new way of talking about and being a human being that is far more fluid and far more flexible. I think it's a really interesting experiment. But the stuff because that is a younger generation and an experiment that's still going on, the stuff that I like to write about is the old gender binaries, because that is still how most people identify, and that is still where I perceive the majority of the problems to be. Men of my generation, my father's generation, my grandfather's generation, who still have these very solid ideas about what a man is, in the same way that women still have very solid ideas about what a woman is, and kind of going, okay, let's talk about this. Let's look about the problems. Let's look at what a classical small-town guy thinks that his life is and ask him, is that working for you? Let's look at those statistics and see, and just go, do you want to try something different? What would actually work for you? What would give you relief? And we find this in sort of like the sort of outreach charities for men's mental health. Apparently men find it very difficult to sit down and have a conversation face-to-face, looking each other in the eye and talking about their emotions. So there's a whole group of charities that are set up in the UK called men's sheds at the bottom of the garden, where you have your shed, where you have your tools and stuff. And you go there and you go and mend a clock, or sharpen your spade, or kind of do some kind of technical crafty thing. So you're not staring at each other, but as you're doing this activity together, same with going fishing or doing gardening together, you talk while you're doing something together. And that seems to be a really healthy way forward. It's not about men all sitting down, holding hands and going, looking each other in the eyes and going, let's have a huge, expansive talk. It's just finding spaces that men and boys feel comfortable in opening up after a while and going, yeah, I got made redundant from work a couple of weeks ago. I'm finding it really difficult, or, my mom died and I still feel really sad about it, or my kids are really in trouble and I don't know how to talk to them. And being able to talk to other men who go, yeah, I know what that feels like. That must be really tough. Here's some stuff that I tried that worked. It's just as simple as that.
Talking with author Caitlin Moran. When we come forward, what is the reboot? If we're rebooting masculinity, if we're breaking out of these sort of societally imposed or self-imposed prisons of gender roles, what does the reboot look like? It's KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The rent is too damn high. KBLA joins you in calling for affordable housing. The LA Tenants Union is a diverse, tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. The LA Tenants Union demands safe, affordable housing and union rent control. They organize against landlord harassment, mass evictions, and displacement, and mobilize for the repeal of the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act. The LA Tenants Union is on a mission to strengthen tenants' political power through education, advocacy, and direct action. To get help with your eviction or other landlord-tenant issues, take action for justice, or become a member, visit latenantsunion.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Applications are now being accepted for the City of Los Angeles Emergency Renters Assistance Program. The program provides up to 6 months of rental arrears to low-income residential renters who are at risk of homelessness due to unpaid rent as a result of COVID-19 or other financial hardship. Applications will not be accepted after 6 p.m. on October 2nd, 2023. Go online 24/7 at housing.lacity.org or call 888-379-3150 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and see if you qualify. Apply today.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
Time truly flies on the radio. Thank you so much, Caitlin Moran, for spending the hour with me this morning. If we are talking about rebooting masculinity, what does the beginning or the sort of framework of that reboot look like?
I think, first of all, it's talking about sort of heroes and role models. I think, again, especially in this last 10-year wave of feminism, girls and women have been so good at talking about their heroes, their role models, their queens, the girls who inspire them. You know, any teenage girl's wall is covered with a pantheon of incredible heroines that, you know, they look up to. And it's just making boys aware, almost like a catalogue that you can flick through. Here are the kind of men that you could be like. So, for instance, in the UK, I think it's interesting to start with sporting men, because those are obviously big heroes for a lot of young men. So in the UK, there are two young black working class football players, some of our best, Marcus Rashford and Dele Alli. So Marcus Rashford comes from a single family, working class, and he 3 years ago started a scheme to make sure that children were getting free, nutritious school meals. And it was a massive political and social campaign. He raised millions of pounds. He had questions raised in Parliament. He still continued to be one of our greatest football players, but he just had that social conscience. He wanted to help his community. He's full of praise for his mother and love for his mother and what a strong role model she'd been. And similarly, Dele Alli, who's another one of our amazing football players, soccer players, he, a few months ago, very bravely admitted that he had been sexually abused as a child, which opened up the floodgates for so many other people, particularly young black men, to finally have the language and the vocabulary to be able to talk about similar experiences that they'd had. So it's in your vulnerability, you show your strength. You know, in your reaching out to your community and helping children, you show your strength. And then on the other hand, you've got people like, you know, Harry Styles just playing around with what he wears. You know, if that's an important thing for you and you're sad about having to put on your man's trousers and wear your same kind of boring color of clothes every day, the kind of freedom that he shows. And then someone like Keanu Reeves, who's very well known for being absolutely lovely to everybody that he works for, but also profit shares the money that he makes from his movies for not only his cast members, but the crew that he works with. He's been very open about his struggles with kind of like illness and depression. Started a charity in his sister's name when she died of cancer. Like, kind of, these are still heroes. They're still, a lot of them, very good-looking men. They're still fun. They're still incredible at what they do. But their heroism isn't violence or, you know, or guns or oppressing people or being disrespectful to women. It's being a bigger man. It's being a true alpha, in my view. It's kind of going, I want to make the world a better place. I think I'm fabulous enough and clever enough and determined enough to make the world a better place. That's the kind of man that I love, and very much hope my daughters will one day bring back to me as brilliant son-in-laws who've got...
What About Men is her book. You can find it wherever you get books, and we can follow you where?
Oh, yes, I'm on Twitter. I'm Caitlin Moran on Twitter and Ms. Caitlin Moran on Instagram.
Thank you so much for being with me this morning. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I could have done another hour.
Yes, indeed. We sure could. Tavis Smiley's up next. You know that. About to hand him the microphone. I will see you on Twitter, X, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm at DePrima Radio, DIPRIMA, and then radio, and we're at KBLA 1580. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Russia launched its biggest missile attack in weeks across Ukraine today. Missiles pounded energy facilities and knocked out power in 5 regions in the west, center, and east of the country. Officials said the attacks appear to be the opening salvo in a new air campaign against Ukraine's power grid. At least 18 people were reported wounded, including a 9-year-old girl. There are close to 700 attempts to ban library books during the